down for our actor. So I'm just going to clear our properties bin, and we'll go ahead and come down here to kind of where our actor is. So that's going to be right in here. And remember how I said we were going to need to merge him in to kind of fix that issue where the shadow is going over his foot? Well, we would need to do that anyway to be able to separately color correct him from everything else. So what we'll do is just kind of come through here where this card is that we've got for him. And I'm just going to kind of have that go straight out there. We'll disengage that from the scene. And then we'll give him his own scanline render node, just like we did for the shadow. So we'll drop one of those in. And it automatically connected that card object, but we'll still want to connect our camera. So just like that. And I think I'm actually going to pull this over here to the right, just because I think that's going to be a little bit cleaner for us here. And then let's add in a merge node. So I'll hit the tab key and type in merge, and we'll just drop that on the pipe between our other merge and our viewer. And then we'll grab our A pipe and hook it into the scanline render. And I'm just going to come in and add a dot node. So I'm holding control, and we'll just pull that down so that's nice and neat. So that's still looking as good as possible. We still have a little bit of diagonal, but it's not the worst. So now we fixed the problem where the shadow is behind him because it's being merged in before he is. And now we have a little bit more control over color correcting him after he comes out of his own scanline render. So one of the things that you may have picked up on in this course is that you cannot be color correcting things in the midst of these nodes that are 3D. So anything between your first 3D node, like this one here, and your scanline render, no color correct nodes can go in there. So if I was trying to, let's say, add a grade node, and I wanted to drop it on this pipe here, you can see it won't let me drop on any of those pipes. It will let me drop after a scanline render because those are 2D nodes, and you can always kind of tell because of the roundedness of 3D nodes. So the camera is a round node, the card is round, those displaced geos and cylinders are rounded. So it all kind of is a little bit of a hint that this is a 3D node. You can't use this with a 2D node until you output it with a scanline render. So let's go ahead to our actor and get started with our grading and color correcting. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a grade node in on that pipe after the scanline but before the merge. So we're only working on his color correction. And this is at the full res right here. So you can see when we're at full res, I can't see that line around him. If I zoom in really closely, I might be able to start seeing that, but it's really not going to be something we needed to spend a ton of time getting rid of now that we kind of have him in position that's easier to see. So what we need to do is focus on our black point and white point and matching those with our shot. Now, I have found that sometimes just matching them outright to the shot doesn't give you the best result. Let's go ahead and see what that does for us. So I'm going to come in here and we'll click the eyedropper tool for the black point, and right in here is a great area to sample the black point of our background. So I'll just hit Control and Shift and we'll kind of create a little spot right there, and you can see it did change just a little bit for him. And then let's go into the whites. See if we can find a really good white area of our shot. It's probably actually going to be in these pixels right here, so we'll just sample right there for those. And let's go ahead and with our grade node selected, I'm going to hit the D key so you can kind of see this is what it looks like without it, this is what it looks like with. So it's a little bit more contrasty maybe, but where he still feels, you know, just like he doesn't go perfectly, and that's okay. We can still work with that. So this is kind of our initial grade that we're doing to match him to the background, and we'll add another grade node to kind of creatively grade him to make him optically feel like he's integrated better in the shot. So let's go ahead and add a color correct node after this grade. So I'll hit the tab key and type in color correct, and we'll just drop that after the grade. And first things first, I want to desaturate him a little bit because he does feel just a little bit too bright for the shot, and he needs to be much darker because he is in the shadows. So I'm going to take my gain and kind of pull that down a little bit so you can see now he already feels much better by being just a little bit darker overall in that way. And you can play around if you want to edit the contrast at all. I actually think he might look a little bit better with a little more contrast, but then again I would want to come in and just turn down the saturation slightly. I want to be careful though not to edit the contrast so much that we lose detail in his pants by them getting too dark, so be careful about that. Now what I'd like to do is add another grade node after the color correct. So I'm going to hit the tab key and type in grade, and this grade is to make him feel just a little more green overall. So what I can do is use the black and white point to help add some green to him. So I can go into the colors by clicking this little color drop down, and then I can start to play around with those colors by pulling this. So you can see this is going to push him more orange or more blue, which I'm not really trying to change that. So I'm going to undo. And then this is going to make him more green or more fuchsia. So that's what I want. I want to push him towards a little bit more green in those blacks. But you'll notice that that is affecting the whole shot because it's affecting everything that he is associated with. So what we'll want to do is make sure that this is only going to be affecting him. So what we can do is go into our unpremult by and just choose our RGBA.alpha, and that's going to only affect the actor. Now you can see we may have overdone it a little bit. He looks a little too green, so we want to pull that down just so we're getting a little bit more of a hint of green in here. It's very, very slight. And then we'll do the same thing in our white point. You know, I could pull it way up to be more fuchsia or way down to be more green, and I just want it to be very subtle again. So let's come in here where we're kind of looking at these colors, and I'm just going to start to pull that down, or rather up, excuse me. And that's going to start to make him have just a little bit of a green tint. It's subtle, but creatively grading him in this way is really going to make him feel more integrated. And you can see how these greens are now really just kind of pulling and playing off of each other, and he feels like he fits there much, much better. Great. Okay, so now that he's been color corrected, we need to play around with his shadow and getting that kind of corrected a little bit, maybe kind of pushing it off to the side. But I also want to add a rock in the foreground, which is going to kind of be, you know, right in this area here, because I want it to feel like there's something still really close to the camera that we can see a greater amount of parallax with. I want it to be more visible at the beginning also, so that at the end it's kind of out of the shot. So to do that, it's going to be covering up a lot of that shadow, so we may not need to do as much work on it as we think. So I would like to do the rock first before we start really trying to perfect that shadow, in case it covers up so much of it that, you know, we don't want to do more work than we have to. So let's go ahead and add our rock in the foreground in the next lesson, and then we can continue